I want one of those Japanese toilets that has all the settings and does things I didn't even know it could do. Just push a button and say surprise me and it does a new setting every experience.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Dads of Dagobah, the final episode of our Book of Boba Fett review, episode 7. What was the title of the episode again?
In the Name of Honor.
In the Name of Honor. Sean, you want to know what the word of the week is this week?
I can't wait to hear what the word of the week is.
Here it is. Disappointment.
I actually think that this is going to be a very interesting episode of the Dads of Dagobah because right off the bat, I'll give you my hot take. I watched it less than 30 minutes ago. I finished it and jumped on Twitter to see some reactions. And somewhat, maybe this is surprising to you, I don't really understand why people didn't like it. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we aren't in consensus and we can discuss even more. Don't have a negative feedback loop this week. That's great. Well, Sean, tell me why you liked it.
Well,
overall thoughts. Why'd you like it?
Overall thoughts. Were there some scenes and or dialogue choices that were a little bit clunky and I could make fun of them? Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like, yes, throughout the 1 hour viewing experience, there were many times that I laughed out loud like, that was dumb. But overall, I felt like it had some pretty good moments. I didn't think I'd actually have to defend this well, so I haven't really articulated some good defense talking points. But
I'll go with my points then.
Okay.
My first question right off the bat is, Sean, what was the point of the Book of Boba Fett?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a totally different question. If we're trying to do a review of the series as a whole, this show was a weird ride.
Wackus bunkus.
Yeah, it was absolutely like it to me, you'll appreciate this probably. To me, will probably go down as the Solo, a Star Wars story of the TV shows.
Yeah, I can agree there.
Where it's just kind of all right, there's some fun things about it. It's not a dumpster fire of hot garbage, but it also just seems like, what's the purpose of this?
Yeah.
Outside of some fan service and some cool moments.
Right.
But the actual depth of it and like was there a purpose to it? I was just saying that as an episode in a vacuum, this episode, episode 7, and even as a season finale, I thought it was serviceable. I'm like, it wasn't the worst episode of this season.
Okay. So I can agree with you that the episode was fun. I enjoyed many parts of the episode. As a season finale, I cannot agree with you because what was the hook? What was the hook is Cod Vanth is now in the Bacta tank and going to be a mod now. I don't want that at all.
Yeah.
He's going to be Vespa.
I think they should have just left it alone with the Cobb Vanth thing, because to me, the season finale and the ending scene made it seem like you can close the Book of Boba Fett. Like it should be a one season standalone series. There's no reason to continue a Book of Boba Fett season 2.
Yeah, I agree.
And even with that end credit scene with Cobb Vanth, I still feel like that isn't enough for me to say green light a season 2 on this thing.
I agree. As an episode, I did like parts, like I said. Um, really, but the good parts were, I think it's pretty obvious. The Rancor stuff was pretty fun. The Grogu stuff was pretty fun. The um, shooting scenes were not. That went on entirely too long. 15 minutes of shooting at each other from point blank range, and no one could hit anyone. I was like, we're still firing at people, huh? And also, there wasn't any payoff. So, for people who understand, and I'm specifically talking about the death of the villains, right? So, we find out early on in the episode the Pikes were the ones who killed the Tusken Raiders, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't Cad Bane, which I thought, in retrospect, would have been the better answer here, right? So it was the Pikes who killed Tusken Raiders. Okay, so now Boba Fett hates the Pikes, wants them dead. Who kills the Pikes?
Fennec.
Fennec Shan, right? I would have thought, okay, well, I thought Boba Fett would take care of them because they're the ones who killed his friends, right? But instead, he kills Cad Bane. Now, I know that there's a lot of their background in the Clone Wars, but as someone who watched the Clone Wars only once, enjoyed it, but if there's other shows that I liked more and stuff, and Rebels and all that stuff, and more of a movie guy and stuff, video games. I feel like there was a lot more writing on this Cad Bane Boba Fett showdown that the payoff when his demise was ultimately sealed wasn't that great. It was like, okay, well, you killed him. Great. We just met you last episode. And you're the one who didn't kill the Tuskens. Like, you're just a bad guy,
Yeah.
So at the end, I was like, I was left unfulfilled, I guess. And not that I'm like seeking revenge, but I was like, no one really cleaned up their own story, I guess. And I've also thought like maybe I built this up too much in my head about, oh, there's going to be someone at the end. There's going to be some big reveal. There's going to be Kira, or there's going to be, insert fun cameo here, right? Even I saw people saying Ezra could have been there, all this stuff, right? Then I was seeing on Twitter like 3 days before, like, everyone get ready because they're going to tie in a big thing of the sequel trilogy into this show. And I was like, oh, sweet. The sequel, that's going to be great. Nothing. And I get that. That's not their fault. That's my own fault for building it up too much in my head. But there wasn't anything at the end of the show where I was like, yeah, like, awesome. I was just like, okay, that's it. So, those are my thoughts.
That's it.
That's it. That's it.
I do agree with a lot of your points. I think probably the highlights of the episode for me were, I really liked the Mando Boba interactions. And I told Corey as we were watching, I'm like, they needed to lean more into this.
Yeah.
We needed more. That scene when they're in the sanctuary and talking through, and Mando saying, this is the creed, this is the way, I'm not leaving, like, I'll go down with you, all this kind of stuff.
Like, you still believing in that bantha fodder?
Yeah, and Mando's like, I do, and Boba's like, good, because I need somebody here. And that scene, and then them going out before the people of Freetown show up, and that was good. I'm like, that was I felt like it was great. I thought, man, it would have been nice to continue that vibe from Mandalorian season 2, which was the whole Mando Boba Fett buddy cop dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because they're both in Mandalorian armor, but they come from kind of opposite spectrums of belief in or following of the Mandalorian creed or that religion. But I couldn't help but think in that moment, this is what the Boba Fennec Shand relationship was supposed to be. Like, I was like, okay, I want more of this Boba Mando interaction and them teaming up. But I'm like, but really what we should have had was that happening with Fennec. We never got that. It never really came to fruition. I still feel like we didn't get um, that great of moments or character development for Fennec Shand.
She
Uh,
was gone for like 3/4 of the episode.
yeah, and I guess her scene at the end where she assassinated everyone was kind of cool, but I did tell Cora, I'm like, are there holes in the roof of this building? Like, how is she shooting at so many different angles into this building and then hanging the mayor?
Yeah.
I'm like, how? And then she shows up, she apparated basically into the back of the room and stabbed the Pike guy. I'm like, obviously it's meant to be like a cool scene where she's a master assassin. So I don't want to critique it too much because we've been complaining that she hasn't done anything. But I there were things like that, I will say, that I mentioned this at the beginning of my thoughts. There were things like that in the episode kind of took me out of it of this is trying to be cool, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of practicality. Or I'm no military strategist, but there were many times, like you said, during this when they're just shooting, or when the modder girl is like, no, we can't keep retreating. We make our stand here. We fight. I'm like, that's what you've been doing. You've been fighting. So I don't know what you're talking about. Like, all of a sudden now we're going to fight? Like, you've been fighting this whole time. And so there were a lot of lines and dialogue like that where it was like, we're gonna fight, and is that supposed to be inspirational? Is that supposed to get everybody like motivated? And I'm like, yeah, but what's the plan? Nobody's giving like a real plan of any strategy on how you're going to win the fight,
Right.
other than we're just gonna fight and we're
I'll
gonna.
go up to this area and snipe them from here. Like, how is that any different than what you guys have been doing?
Yes, and I'm like, and those huge destroyer scorpion droids or whatever they were called, going up and having the high ground and sniping down does nothing. So there needed to be a real plan or discussion on, we can keep fighting the little foot soldiers of the Pikes, but we need a different plan for these droids. And for the longest time, our characters did not know that Boba was going to go get the Rancor. And so for them just to pick that random archway in Mos Espa and say, this is where we make our stand, we fight. Similar to your boys behind you there with the barricade. And also that ending of Les Mis, not a strategic place for them to barricade themselves in. I mean,
Nope,
let's get
nope.
real.
Speaking of, I need to give credit to my wife for this background. That was her idea about the Les Mis. Yeah.
And so I get that. So back to the things I liked. I liked the Mando Boba Fett interactions. I liked I don't never remember her name. Is it Pelly? Who's the Mos Eisley hangar owner?
Yeah.
She to me is like the only character in this whole show that can pull off the comedic relief.
Oh yeah, easily.
It's
She's
like
the
so
C-3PO.
it's so like authentically funny. Every other people who make jokes, I'm like, that didn't land, or that was weird. You're trying to be funny, but this lady constantly has me laughing.
How did she lose a tooth?
Yeah, I don't know. I love that she just genuinely loves Grogu. And so I liked the Grogu Mando stuff. I thought it was actually somewhat of a poignant emotional moment where Mando first sees him and Grogu force leaps up there to hug him. I'm like, that's nice. And I liked the Rancor stuff. I thought that was cool. So there were things like that. Like you said, I had fun. I had fun watching the episode. My original critique of, or my original thought of, I didn't think it was a disappointment was because I had fun. And I think I wasn't disappointed because the show told me what it was weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so my expectations as the show has gone on, my expectations have gone lower and lower because I never expected that this season finale was going to be some amazing culmination of this show when the whole show has just kind of been a hot and cold roller coaster ride. And so I'm like, that was as good of a, you know, wrapping up of the story as it could have been in my mind. I don't know
Never
what else
did
I
get
would have
to
added.
never did get to go to Now Hutta, did we?
Or Naboo, or not Naboo, Camino. We never saw anything else with Camino. We were like sure we were going to get Camino flashbacks. But
Um,
I agree with you. The Cad Bane stuff, 100% agree with you. If you haven't watched the Clone Wars and you didn't see those episodes where a young Boba Fett, when he's still a boy slash young adult, is mentored by Cad Bane as a bounty hunter. Cad Bane basically teaches him how to be a bounty hunter.
mhm.
And that's all, those arcs are all in the cartoon. We have to assume that the vast majority of people watching the Book of Boba Fett haven't watched that cartoon. And so when Cad Bane is saying things like, this is my last lesson, that might come across as weird because most people won't realize that's because Cad Bane is his mentor.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come across in the live action show. So I get what you're saying.
That's why I think Cad Bane should have been the one to kill the Tusken camp.
Yeah.
That way, people who don't know the history of Cad Bane and Boba Fett can go, "Oh, but he's the ultimate bad guy. Forget about the Pikes."
And what do we think was Cad Bane's motivation in all of this? Because why was he antagonizing Boba with that information and saying, when the Pikes are like, Boba doesn't know that we did it. He thinks it was the swoop gang, and he already took out his revenge on them. Then Cad Bane immediately goes to Boba and is like, the Pikes killed the Tuskens. And it's like, are you trying to, I guess he was trying to provoke him or something, but it was this weird, like, it seemed like Cad Bane wasn't betraying the Pikes, but he was like giving away that information for no reason other than to provoke Boba, I guess. But I think last thing I'll say is I think this episode 2 is a little bit difficult to go chronologically through play by play because it really is just the whole episode is just the battle. I mean, we can still do it, but it'll be hard for me to keep the timeline straight probably.
I mean, they start off and they say, we are going to make our stand here in the sanctuary. Don't go back to your palace. Be different than Jabba, right?
Let's just say right off the bat, I hate the modders, the Mos Vespas. They're the worst part of the show. And any dialogue they had, I thought that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It was not. Yeah, it was like bad acting or something. It was poorly executed. The guy does a spin move. He's like, let's try spinning that.
That spin move was really funny. Like, what was that? Well, and so the first 2 minutes, the modder guy is like, no, make your stand here, blah, blah, blah. And Boba just is like, okay. And I was again like, why does Boba, he doesn't have a single like critical thought in his head on what he should do. He just listens to, if anybody else suggests anything, he's like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Okay.
I understand they're trying to show that he's a changed man, right? And he's not a cold, hard killer anymore. But you got to still have a backbone. You still got to have I don't know. I was just like, okay, I guess these modders are now running the show.
But to me, it's like the idea of you're not going to abandon your people or you're not going to, be dishonorable or whatever it is, doesn't mean that you have to be stupid and die in a hopeless situation. Like, why was it such a bad idea to, okay, maybe you don't go hide out in Jabba's palace, but you don't have to sit like a sitting duck in the middle of the city with no defenses. Like, there's a middle ground there. Why can't you go back to Jabba's palace and get the Rancor? Or why can't you go back to Jabba's palace and get your fire spray gunship? Or, whatever it is. Like,
go get something and come back.
Yeah, there are other things you can do without, okay, yeah, we'll stay. We won't abandon the people. Because I'm like, if Boba would have gone to the palace, were the Pikes going to go through Mos Espa and just start slaughtering everyone like genocide? I don't think so. So if
Yeah.
anything, you probably could have cut down on the uh what's that, collateral damage? That's the word I'm looking for. You could have cut down on the collateral damage in the city if you would have taken the fight to Jabba's palace. Draw the Pikes outside of the city. I mean, come on, Boba.
Fight on your own turf. And can we talk? I mean, then we get these scenes about they're spread all around Mos Espa. Black Chrysanthemum, he's hidden well over by the mayor's office.
He's just standing out in front of it.
And the modders, they're hidden well out in their area. And the Gamorrean guards, they're standing on the edge of a cliff, but they're hidden well. I'm just like, really? Anyone ever heard of crouching and hiding or looking out a window, maybe?
I will say that we're getting, at this point, Cad Bane is talking to the Pike leader in Mos Eisley.
Right.
And the Pike leader in Mos Eisley is like, Boba's hiding out in the sanctuary. And I'm like, how do you know that? Because literally Boba just got there. And you are presumably, leagues and leagues away. Mos Eisley and Mos Espa aren't like right next to each other, I assume.
Right.
And so how did word travel that quickly, or intelligence travel like they're in the sanctuary? I guess they could have used some sort
They
of
could have had spies or something, I guess.
communication device. Like, okay, I just answered that question, but still, it was a little bit weird to me. But yeah, so yeah, I thought in my head too. I'm like, so I guess the Pikes know who everybody who's in Boba's gang at this point. Like, they knew Black Chrysanthemum was working for Boba.
Probably.
They knew, I guess they knew all that. Yeah, I thought it was a little bit forced there. And Fennec is like narrating this whole thing. And that whole opening scene with Fennec narrating it, I thought a little bit like, again, in a real situation, your second in command or whatever wouldn't be narrating this. Like, they're over there and they're watching this place. Nobody's going to be able to sneak up on us. Like, okay.
All four of you got snuck up on. Actually,
Yeah.
They didn't even need to sneak. They just come straight at you.
Yeah, they showed up like nobody. Cad Bane just walked down the street like nobody even saw him.
I love also
Then they start
how
their whole.
the Transdoshans go after Black Chrysanthemum, and I love it too. He like senses something's up. They all take out their knives. They're about 30 feet away, so they all have knives. And again, he has a gun. Doesn't start using it till about 3 feet away. He's like, okay, I'll start blasting. And I'm like, bro, come on, this is so dumb.
Were you also surprised that Black Chrysanthemum, who Chewbacca got his nickname Chewie, and now we know that Black Chrysanthemum's nickname is Santo. Were you surprised that Santo seems to have bulletproof and or blaster proof fur? This guy can take
How many
so
times did he
many
get hit?
blasters, no armor whatsoever, and the visual effects looks like the same visual effects of the blasters going off the Beskar armor.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm like,
Yeah.
This guy's like Wolverine, where he's actually, his exoskeleton has been coated in Beskar.
And were the Transdoshans, they were like 8 people on him. Were they eating him? Were they knifing him? And then somehow he got out of that.
He somehow got out of that, and he's limping through the streets. It's like, and I was like, it took a while for Boba to be like, cover me, I'm going to go help him. I'm like, he needed help a long time ago, bros. We're just watching him limp along.
Can you
finally
move
get
along,
shot.
please, Santo?
He got shot again in like the hamstring and goes down, and Boba's like, okay, I guess we should go help him. I owe you a long soak in the bacta tank after this. Like, I will kill you.
I don't know if Bacta will work on all that armor fur. Anyway, we get the scene where Baby Yoda comes, Grogu comes in the X-wing with R2-D2, I originally thought that Grogu had flown the X-wing.
Well,
I was like, no
I thought Luke was
way.
coming.
Oh yeah, that was my first. But then like the comic books, I'm like, no way, Grogu flew the thing.
And then he
um,
eats some dung worms, and I'm like, we couldn't have made a more appetizing name than dung worms.
yeah. But she was funny too. She was like, I just, as you pulled up, I was just renewing my registration. So everything with her is great. Let's just have a show about her. Um, Later on, we see her again. She shows up in the middle of the battle, acting like nothing's wrong. I thought it was funny. You know, he could have been like, how does she not know? But I thought it was funny. But did Grogu force choke that droid? Is that what
I said
happened?
the I said the same thing. And Corey was like, what are you talking about? No, I'm like, he definitely held up his hand and the head twisted off of that droid.
Why did Grogu do that? Just like,
I,
I'm bored.
that is so funny that you say that because I absolutely got the same impression and I was confused. And then I thought, well, maybe he sensed that they needed to stop for some reason, but it never really played out. So then my mind just thought maybe I didn't actually see that. Maybe that wasn't the case.
No, I think that's what, because like smoke came out of it, and I'm like, he just force choked a robot. We know he loves the force choke, but dang.
I always am surprised because for whatever reason, my irrational fan brain wants Grogu to do something more significant with the Force. And then I realize, yeah, it's probably good that they don't make him like all powerful. He needs to slowly, gain aptitude, right?
I
And
thought
so
for
what he
sure.
does is usually appropriate. It still is helpful, but it's not like crazy. But I'm always like, I want him to be able to pick up the droid and do what Luke did to those droids in season 2 and just like crumple it, and it just completely crumples and it's like, oh, he just took out a little ball in the knees, so it couldn't stand up anymore.
And did he do that on purpose, or did he just want to play with the ball?
Right.
I thought for sure we were going to see his light. I thought we were going to see the lightsaber too, and I thought, oh, sweet, this is going to be. He was able to pick both. You know, I thought that's was hopefully where we could have gone, but
I thought we
I
were
guess
gonna see Luke on the floor of his new Jedi Temple hut with a lightsaber stab right through the heart because Grogu assassinated him. It was like, don't make me choose. I'm taking my shirt and the lightsaber. And then what we get in Force Awakens and Last Jedi is actually
the al-
Luke.
the alternate timeline from the world between worlds, huh?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. There, there were those scenes of like the first time that Cad Bane and Boba Fett were gonna like face off, and it didn't happen. Fennec talked Boba down.
She talked him down. She said your emotions are too high, and I was in there, and then he like puts his hand on his gun, and that like signifies I'm not gonna shoot you, so we're not doing this right now. Like, is that
Yeah.
standard dueling rules? I will stand here. Anyway,
And then the
um,
second time when he sends the mayor's major domo out there to negotiate, and I was a little bit like, okay. But right after that ensued the cool action scene of them, Boba and Mando, both in their jetpacks, gunning people down, and before the people of Freetown show up. But
so we get the big droids that come, right?
the
Destroyer,
episode 1 upgrades,
master, destroyers. Uh, I thought they were cool. I did not understand how they were able to keep up with anything.
yeah.
Like they're like plotting along step. People are like running. People are on speeder bikes. All of a sudden, the speeder bike. Well, I guess Grogu destroys the speeder droid, and the Scorpion droid is right there. I'm like, what? They were on that fast robot anyway, and it was just so prolonged. It was just so much. Just and I'm like, those things are so powerful. They have a shield. All they have to do is stand there and just blast. Like do a first order against Luke Skywalker on crate and just unload on him.
What
But
I didn't understand was the people of Freetown, the people, Boba, Mando, all of them. What what was the purpose of them just continually shooting at these things with the shields?
I know.
Like, I thought in my head, I'm like, is it, thinking of in my brain of like a video game, I'm like, if they shoot it enough times, will the shield go down? Like the shield can only take so much damage, and so they think let's just keep shooting at this until the shield goes away. But there seems to be no collective strategy on how are we going to handle these things other than run, let's distract them. Okay, let's stop running. We make our stand here, but we don't really have any strategy on how we're going to do this. So just keep shooting at them. It's like, well, shooting at them don't seem to work at all.
Yeah.
And I had to give it up to my man Black Chrysanthemum was the only one that tried something different. He's like, let me see if I can just barehand this thing.
I was screaming I was like, would someone at least go into the shield at least? Because Mando at least brings out the black saber and the dark saber and tries to go in there and can't. I'm like, okay, well at least we tried something different. But no one ever tries to just walk in.
I mean, obviously Boba tried to use his rocket, and that didn't work either. So, yeah,
but they said the reason why the kinetics didn't work was because they went too fast. And I'm like, okay, so walking in is also too fast?
Yeah, because when Black Chrysanthemum just kind of slowly touched it, he couldn't hardly get in.
Uh-huh.
Which I agree with you. It was like what I didn't understand. But yeah, so Boba then is like, hey, you guys wait here, keep everyone safe. I got an idea. And I don't know how far away Jabba's palace is from the city center, but from our experience in Return of the Jedi and seeing a Rancor moving, I have always gotten the impression that Rancor are not the most agile or quick creatures. They don't have high mobility. Now, I guess we saw something different in the Clone War or in a Bad Batch.
Yeah, with Muchi.
But I was shocked at how agile this Rancor was, leaping from building to building.
I think we learned that this was an adolescent, right? Isn't that what they said?
That's true.
So maybe it was young and spry, but yeah. And also,
how did they get back so quickly? He was like, ride like the wind, bullseye.
Well, and also, if you go back to Jabba's palace, and to your point earlier, you see Slave 1 and you see a Rancor, and you go, no, I'm going with the Rancor. Like, but
you would think Slave 1's weapons would be able to take those droids out, right?
Yeah. Huh? Oh well.
So anyway,
also, it seemed like the Rancor also had armor plating skin or something. Took some point blank shots and it was just like, ugh.
Well, so the reveal is the horror movie Jurassic Park claws over the whatever, and it comes up, and I had to start laughing again because immediately the Rancor reveals itself and Boba's on top of it, and Boba just starts shooting again at the droid. Shoot, shoot, shoot. And I'm like, what is this strategy that let's give away our position? The Rancor now is way up on top of this building, not anywhere within range for the Rancor to fight the droid, and I'm going to start shooting at it again. Shooting at it does not work. Stop shooting at it.
Yet they continued to shoot at it for the entire episode.
And so I thought, what are they going to do with the Rancor? But then the Rancor jumped off the building. I was like, oh, the thing, Bumbles bounce. That thing is more mobile than I thought it was.
And yeah, so the Rancor landed on it, caused it to have a defect in the shield, right? To which Mando could then go in and still take his sweet time. I'm like, can we just please just go for the legs? Can we please just go for the legs, people? Like, oh, gotta climb up on top, take off a gun. Okay, well, I'm gonna keep riding this. I'm like, just cut the legs off, people, and then he can run away from it. Anyway,
I will
and
say
then
I
he's
was nervous and I felt like surely they're not going to kill off this Rancor. Like
oh
we
yeah,
just got the Rancor, don't kill it. And I thought they were going to kill the thing for a second. So I'm
what's
glad
that?
it's still alive and well and that Grogu could lull it to sleep with the Force.
Go to sleep, little Rancor. I don't know why you need to go to sleep.
And then Grogu's like, that took a lot out of me to put you to sleep, so I'm going to curl up next to you. Come on, buddy, keep me warm here.
Get me warm a little bit. Okay, so we have a little scene where they can't retreat anymore because then they'll be surrounded. I'm like, bro, you're surrounded. Read the room. And they're like, no, we need to go up there and snipe them.
Snipe. Need to
So they
snipe
go up
down.
there and they shoot them. And here's the thing: we saw so many pikes get blasted, and they just kept coming. And I'm like, okay, never-ending army, I guess. And they go up there, and it's like supposed to be the scene of like the people of the city and the people from the outskirts work together. But I was just like, okay, like I don't like this modded person and this other girl I just met, And eventually the Rancor comes. Well, I always get confused about which Scorpion droid. How does that Scorpion droid get destroyed? It's
The
oh
first
the
one, the Rancor is fighting it, and it looks like it's diverting its energy and its power to the front of the shield because the back of the shield turns red, and that's when Mando goes in with the Darksaber and destroys that one. Grogu takes out its kneecap
right.
or whatever.
Then the Rancor goes to the second one, throws it into the building, but the droid still comes back, but the Rancor can still destroy it.
Yes. And during that scene, I felt like was the first time I said, this is like Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla, or this is like Godzilla versus Kong vibes here. And that was before the Rancor even climbed up the tower. I'm like, okay, this is clearly a King Kong callback here.
Yep.
But yeah, and then at what point? Again, I'm not getting the timelines right, but at one point, then the Rancor shows up on top of the building before it climbs the tower, and our allies are now shooting at the Rancor. I'm like, what is happening?
That's after the Boba Fett Cad Bane scene.
Oh, okay.
Because he gets thrown off the Rancor, or the Rancor runs away. Oh yeah, he gets thrown off. Rancor runs away, but
My wife thought that was really dumb that Cad Bane was able to get the Rancor to run away with the flamethrower.
yeah, a flame. Oh, I'm afraid of fire. And then let's talk about the scene with Cad Bane and Boba Fett. I think we've kind of already talked about it, but ultimately, what kills Cad Bane is the Tusken. His Boba's relationship with the Tuskens, right? His blaster doesn't work. He can't outdraw him. He can't, beat him with the draw, but he can beat him with his old gaffy stick.
Yep. And I need to go back and watch that scene probably because I didn't. It moved too quickly for me to realize like how did he get that gappy stick out?
Mm-hmm.
It was like slung across his back, and all of a sudden he's sweeping the leg with it. And I'm like, whoa, how did he get that off of his back all of a sudden? But are you surprised they killed Cad Bane?
No. No.
I'm not surprised at all. I don't know what else they would use him for. To me, it was just kind of this fun, like, oh, he's in live action. And I get what you're saying about it wasn't in the vacuum of the Book of Boba Fett series. It wasn't a satisfying payoff because we didn't know much about Cad Bane. But I didn't expect or need to see live action Cad Bane in more projects moving forward.
Yeah. I don't either. I was really hoping for the Tusken Raider girl to come.
Yeah.
Because, I thought that would have been. Oh, well.
Can I also say, why do you think all of the other, uh, what did they call them? Yorgs or Gorns or whatever they're called, the other crime families, the Trandoshans and the Aqualishes and all of them, why did they turn on Boba Fett?
I think they just cut a deal with the Pikes and they wanted the money. Maybe they had gotten some sort of deal with the money. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it just to me that again wasn't a huge uh satisfying payoff where it was like, oh, they're turning against him. We don't really know why. Like why did you do that? You could have just stayed out of it and the Pikes probably still would have won.
True.
Um,
But we all knew in that episode where they all said, yes, neutrality will be fine. We all knew, like, they're lying through their teeth, right? That's why he needed to hire muscle.
yeah.
So Cad Bane is dead. Then we have the Rancor Godzilla scene, or not King Kong scene up on the tower. It was fun. They're shooting at it, brings it down. Grogu calms it down. But there is like a funny where he's like the Rancor's like totally like I like monsters and I like the Rancor, so that stuff was fun. I don't understand why it needed to be put to sleep, but whatever.
Yeah. No, I don't know either. But another opportunity for Grogu to show that he has some interesting force
Yep.
powers.
And then all of a sudden, smash cut to everything's fine and hunky dory. Oh no, then we have Fennec Shan go and kill people. So yeah, we've talked about that, and I didn't think the payoff was that great. Should have been Boba to kill the Pikes since they were the ones who killed his people, but whatever, it's fine. Fennec was cool. Nothing against her. I feel bad for her. She was vastly underutilized.
Yeah.
Um, but then all of a sudden everything's fine and dandy and Mos Espa. Everyone's bowing to him. He's like, "Why does it always have to be the right hand?" That was a little funny. But it's still
And
the Modders and still
he seemed
Santo.
all annoyed. He seems all annoyed, like, why are they always bowing to me? I'm like, isn't this what you wanted,
Yeah,
bro?
this is what you're doing,
You
right?
wanted to rule with respect and you wanted to be the daimyo and you weren't a crime lord anymore. And now he's like, why we're not suited for this. We're not cut out for this. I'm like, literally, what are you talking about? This whole show has been about you trying to prove that you're going to be a different man and a different leader. And the throwaway line at the end is, we're not suited for this. Like, what are you talking about?
So again, I ask, what was the point of the show?
The point of the show was to set up Mandalorian season 3.
I guess so. Give us an extra year to film. I don't know. Um,
So everybody seems to be totally, you know, the um, city's being rebuilt. We're all helping out,
is
rebuilding
there no
Mos
further
Espa.
conflict? Like, introduce the Huts back. Introduce something to be like, oh, there's still something going on here, but we don't get anything except for, why do I always remember Cobb Vanth? Then we're like, oh, but he's a good guy.
And maybe that Cobb Vanth after credit scene isn't even supposed to be setting something up. Maybe it's just supposed to be like,
He lived.
hey, he lived, and the modders are gonna fix him up. He's not dead, and that's it. There's not a greater plot thread that we're supposed to follow from that.
So is there going to be a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett?
In the most supportive way I can say, I will say I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not too.
I don't think it's necessary. And I think after last week, I think I sent you a tweet or you sent me a tweet, I can't remember, where there were those quotes from Jon Favreau from last year after season 2 of Mandalorian ended. And a lot of people were confused at why Book of Boba Fett, like, is that Mandalorian season 3? And he said, no, it's not Mandalorian season 3, but it is a continuation of Mando's story. And it happens within that storyline in that world. And there was even those reports or sources that said that internally Dave Filoni and Favreau were referring to Book of Boba Fett as Mandalorian season 2.5.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, that makes sense. Now that we've seen the whole season of Book of Boba Fett, it obviously makes sense. There was a lot that happened to set up the Mandalorian season 3. But I think as a overall, and maybe we'll do a different video on our thoughts on the series overall. But my spoiler for that is that a series to show us a satisfying character arc for Boba Fett in some sort of crime lord Godfather type drama that it was teased to be, yes, I would say the series was a disappointment.
100%. I don't need to do another review of this series.
Well, our friend and former guest host Shane Kaysen, he was very excited about his favorite character, favorite character Boba Fett. You might remember from our top villains series that he wanted his top 5 to be number 1 Boba Fett, number 2 Boba Fett, number 3 Boba Fett, number 4 Boba Fett, number 5 Boba Fett. We told him that he couldn't do that. So I'd be curious to hear from a super fan of Boba Fett, because Boba Fett never was my favorite character. I never really thought that he wasn't ever one that I was drawn to, like, oh, he's the coolest character, even though a lot of other people think that. And so I didn't have a lot of emotional attachment to the character going into this series. So the fact that it wasn't that awesome to me, I'm like, oh, whatever, moving on. I'm not upset. Some people on Twitter are very upset about, they feel like Boba Fett as a character has been ruined for them.
I don't feel that way, but I also, the show to me was unfulfilling, I guess. I don't mind if he's going to be a good guy, let him be a good guy, and I don't mind that at all. I don't mind the character change. I just mind the execution of it.
Yeah.
And then halfway through, we get to the good stuff, and he's like, and then we're like, oh, 2-episode hiatus, and I'm like, oh, this is good stuff. Oh yeah, and it's still got that Boba Fett story going on. Oh, the ending isn't as fun as I thought it would be. What was the point of the show again? Oh, the show that Boba Fett's a good guy? Okay. I feel like we got that same thing from the Mandalorian season 2. We got that. Boba Fett is cool. He still kicks butt, but he's nice.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's a fair critique, and I agree with it.
We're anxious to hear what you guys have to say about the season finale hopefully series finale, of the Book of Boba Fett. Okay, tell me, what were your thoughts when the episode ended? What did you think? Credits roll, post-credit scene over, you turn off Disney Plus. What are you thinking?
My honest thoughts were, well, that was about as good as they could have done to end that show.
Okay, that's fair. I just wish there would have been a hook at the end. Give us something.
But see, did you really want a hook? Because the hook would have implied that we're going to go into another season, and I don't want that.
No, I would have wanted a hook for Mando season 3.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we already got that. We got that in the episode 5 with the Mandalore stuff.
We got I guess that's true. That's an excellent point. Yes, we did. Go wash yourself in the waters in the mines of Mandalore.
So in a way, I liked this season finale because it intentionally wrapped everything up so that there's no need for continued exploration of these characters.
It's like reading the book and like, well, everyone died. Well, at least there's not going to be a sequel I have to read, I guess.
That's right.
Voldemort's dead. Glad that's over with. Let us know what you think. Comment section below. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Leave your comments below what you thought about the Book of Boba Fett.
And tell us why we don't need a second season.
Can I tell you something
yeah,
else?
we'd love to hear.
Yesterday I was just I was watching a little bit of The Last Jedi before I started work. I was crying. I freaking love that movie.
What? Why were you crying?
When Holdo turns that ship around
Oh my
and she goes to
gosh.
defend her friends, to sacrifice herself.
That's not
And,
even that. I, I
and then
would
when
pick.
Luke comes and kisses Leia on the forehead
Okay, yes.
and
I was gonna
tells
say I
her,
would pick at least 5 other moments in that movie that are more emotional than Holdo turning the ship around.
well, it's just the whole thing with Ben holding out his hand and Ray saying, "No, don't do this." It's like, oh gosh. Anyway, freaking love that movie. Anyway, leave your comment below what you thought about the Book of Boba Fett. This has been the Dads of Dagobah, episode 7. We'll be back.
On May 25th.
Let's be real. May 25th, we'll be back unless we film another episode standalone. Maybe we'll get one of our friends on here, Shane Cason, to have him talk about Boba Fett.
I'll say I'll go out on a limb. I know this might be a hot take. People might be surprised by this. I'm just gonna say here and now my official declaration: The Last Jedi is better than the Book of Boba Fett.
What would you give the
I
Book of
said it.
Boba Fett out of 10?
4. Maybe that's too harsh. Maybe a 5. I would do
I'd say
5.
6.
I'm doing to do a 5. Middle of the road. It was average. There were some great moments. There were some really not great moments. It was just an average, mediocre 5.
Okay, 5.5 is our score. Thanks, everyone. Leave a comment down below. This is the way.
And we have spoken. We'll see you next time on the Dads of Dagobah.
That's right. Go take a nap with the Rancor.
Bye.